a major factor?
That's pretty important because you, of course, need to show that, like, people are using your pages, people can go to your Facebook page from those shareable points, and it gets more users on site.
Excellent. And I know that Rand is always kind of talking about, when he's talking about, an optimized page, he talks about uniquely valuable. Is there anything to kind of, if I'm just kind of starting out, how do I know that my content is maybe uniquely valuable?
It depends on what you're writing about. So in this example here, we see that it's chocolate donuts from Mary's Bakery. If I have these really amazing chocolate donuts and I want to write about what makes them so special, about why their ingredients are awesome, about why the baking process is just super perfect, and I put that sort of information on page, that is really valuable to the reader, and it is a unique piece of content that you really can't find anywhere else on the web. So you'll know because it's what makes your website special.
Excellent. That sounds good. Now I'm hungry for donuts.
You should. You picked out some great pictures.
I know. Those are some really good ones too. And I think I've heard too that title tags, meta description, and the URL, that those are very important. Especially having your keywords that you want to rank for in somewhere in the title tag of the page, and the meta description. I know that that's not really for for bots or for Google necessarily, but it's more for the user. Maybe what are some best practices that kind of involve the title and the meta?
Of course, you should have title tags and H1s and H2s. All of those should be a good summary of what's in there. So Google kind of uses them to look at, like, what is this content about before I read it? For example, this wonderful example about chocolate donuts. Chocolate donuts is a wonderful title tag for that piece. It's going to be all about chocolate donuts. You should just put what fits best for that article and makes sense to the user. The meta description isn't super important for your SERPs, but it does entice users to click on the page. It gives a little more description about what's on there. That's a little bit more for the user. The URL is also super important. If the URL is marysbakery.com/ and just a jumble of numbers or a date tag, that doesn't really show what's on that page. It's also a little bit harder to type in, and it could lead to some duplications. Maybe this chocolate donuts article is under the category chocolate, under the category baking, and that could lead to some duplicate page issues.
Oh, excellent. Let's see. So for checking my on-site SEO, making sure everything is well optimized, there are a lot of tools out there, and so you kind of you have a list for us today to kind of go through. This is kind of like a starter kit. What do each of these kind of help us out with?
I really like Redirect Checker. It'll tell you if the page is redirecting correctly. So if you just went from an HTTP version to an HTTPS version and it's not redirecting correctly, you can check it right on page. Check My Links is pretty nice. It'll tell you whether things are no-followed or if all the links are working. Screaming Frog is one of my favorites. You can get Screaming Frog 500 for free. There's also a larger version if you want to do more than 500 pages. It'll tell you all about your H tags, about your internal links. There's a mess of things you can do with Screaming Frog. Why Slow is one of many extensions that you can use. It's a little touchy. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. And it'll tell you why your web page is slow. So if you've got really slow JavaScript in there, or really any of the issues that could be slowing down your web page, YSlow is a pretty good extension. This is really important if you're doing an e-commerce site. That's where speed is especially important. Moz, Majestic, SEMrush, those are all just the basics for on-page SEO. That'll tell you where your backlinks are from, where they're linking, where things are linking to, what your keywords might be. There is a lot of information you can pull from those, and those are just the basic must-haves for any technical.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about like SEMrush is that you can go through and see what keywords that you're ranking for, on a domain level, but also, if you do the export and the report, you can see which of your URLs are ranking for which specific keywords and kind of where they're at. And as far as somebody that is interested in kind of fine-tuning their keywords and kind of what they, what they're kind of putting out on that page, and to see what they're actually ranking for, that's a really great way to kind of test that and to see where you're at there. And maybe make a tweak here and there, change a couple of keywords around, change a title tag, and then run it through SEMrush in a month or so, and just kind of see how, if anything was changed, kind of shaken up there. So love that tool.
You could also go the other way with it. Pull your keywords from SEMrush. Look for maybe a few hard hitters, a few really powerful keyword sections you should be going after, and use Moz's keyword tool. It'll tell you about how difficult it might be to rank for that and like how much focus you might want to put into there. If it's an 80 difficulty, you may not have the time or the money to be able to really rank for that.
Yeah, that's a really good one, and yeah, just the ability to kind of go through and check the difficulty level and kind of be able to make decisions based on empirical data, as far as like moving forward with the content campaign or changing things on your site, is really valuable. Like when talking to training clients or new hires or whomever, when we're talking SEO and talking link building, one of the most important things is to be able to make decisions based on empirical data. And I think that's why kind of on-page and page-level SEO optimization is very interesting, kind of an integral part of a full kind of a full stack link building campaign, because you can go through and look in the HTML, look what's going on, and then check it, check with your rankings with SEMrush and make real hard decisions based on hard data. And so kind of taking the guesswork out really helps. So so how are some ways that having an optimized landing page, how does that help out with link building?
It helps out a ton. You can build links all day, but unless they're really doing good work, they're not really doing too much for your site. So you want to make sure that the link is passing all the juice it can be, and that the people who are clicking onto your site are continuing forward onto your site. You could have a wonderful link pointing to your site, but if the user clicks on the link, immediately bounces, it's not going to pass that much juice. In fact, it might even pass the negative juice if it might be a good link, but it goes to a bad page. You also want to make sure that the bots can get through onto your site. While bots do follow no-follow links, depending on if the users go through, you do want to make sure that it's able to follow the link to your site. It just makes it a little bit easier for it to go onto your site. Technical is wonderful for a link building campaign. It makes sure that the links that are built are doing their fullest capacity of link juice passing.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think one thing it's an interesting kind of aspect of any sort of like on-site kind of page level optimization is that the user, we should never forget the user experience, even though it's maybe not necessarily part of like the bots or kind of the rankings per se, but I think that a really good user experience, it adds a lot to the overall to the overall health of the page and the optimization level. Like you can have for instance like a page that's optimized for bots. It's optimized within an inch of its life with like the perfect amount of code and keywords everywhere and all that. But if it's just like kind of a boring page that's just basically black and white text on a it's black text on a white background, no pictures, no interesting things to kind of visually draw the user in or kind of add to their experience, then I think you've done then at that point you've done a bad job at optimizing, even though it's perfect for the bots. So I think that the user experience is an important part too.
Oh yeah, especially because as much as Google likes to deny that user metrics have a play in rankings, there's been a lot of experiments that show exactly the opposite is true, and it's getting more and more focused around the user experience on page.
Which I think is a really good direction to go. if I'm just starting, I was just helping a family friend kind of get their business off the ground and kind of build a website for them, and to kind of, they're kind of new to this, and really, like, he's a business owner. He's not an expert in coding or anything like that, and he was just like, hey, I just want to do this, put this picture here, put this paragraph there, and he just wants to make it great for his audience and for his customers, and not have to worry about people like him. You shouldn't have to worry about all the nitty gritty kind of getting down to it. So I think the user experience and kind of like the customer experience is very important. Hopefully in the future kind of moves more in that direction too. I think it'd be great. So, well, as we kind of talked about before, and as you may have seen, we want to go through some kind of live walkthroughs, some sites that were kind of are kind of emblematic of some different issues that you might see in the wild. Now, we have no affiliation with these sites. We're not trying, they're not compensating us for showing them on the webinar or anything like that, but just went through and kind of picked these out so that we can kind of show the good examples and a quick walkthrough kind of optimizing these landing pages. So, Mary, take it away. What do we got here?
We have Cabin, Idaho, which is, it's not a terrible site. They'll give you some information about cabins. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It doesn't. So I just pulled up my Moz tool. I like to look at what's followed and what's no followed on site. When I first pulled this up a little bit earlier, I didn't really think too much was followed. I just thought this little link here to the author was the only thing followed, but it's not. If you look, you can see that these images are linked to just the images. It's also pretty content shy. So there's not much content on page. There's not much about these books. It's just a list of books, which is pretty unfortunate if you're trying to get this page to rank. It doesn't even link to like, more about this book. Maybe they could have linked to where you could buy the book even. There's not a lot of hints for what's on page. Now, if you're doing a page-by-page content analysis, you can also just inspect the element. And let's see what they did as the title tag. Title tag's pretty good. It's the Cabin's list of romantic reads, which is wonderful for Valentine's Day. Pretty good title tag, explains what's on here. But, as you can see, let's see if they did multiple H2s.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple in there. Yeah, so we got events title, yeah. Tribe events title, yeah.
There's quite a few H2s, which means Google sees all of those things and is like, all of these are an explanation about what's in here. Same thing for this H1, that this is about the cabin, Idaho, instead of like a romantic read, or they could have done the book titles, would have been a suitable H2 replacement. That would have been a pretty good explanation about what's in here. The subpoints of like romantic reads would have been pretty nice. Or if they were selling the books, an e-commerce site, they could have used some schema, which it looks like might be a little, I'm not really seeing any schema other than in the just basics of the site. They're not picking out anything.
Navigation. Yeah.
They're not picking out anything important to really show the reader. So if they wanted this list of books to show up when people search the cabin, they could have done some rich text, and that would have made them show up a little bit better in the search results.
And I was just thinking too, it's just the adding more content to this page I think would be really great. If imagine this is a client saying that, hey, we have this really great resource, these romantic novels that we want to highlight. This is a curated list. This is a unique piece of content that we spent a lot of time on. I would definitely advise that, they add the content there, kind of like, what Mary is talking about, to add maybe even links to places to buy or learn more about the books. As well, and kind of make sure that the user experience is kind of paramount there. It looks like are you checking for if it's indexed right now?
Yeah, so I'm looking at to see if they have duplicate versions of their site. So it looks like this site is set up to be HTTP with a www.
Mm.
So I just pulled up the site within URL HTTPS, and it looks like there are some versions pulling up 21 pages of the site with HTTPS, which means it's got a little bit of both. That could mean that there's a couple duplicate pages. To be honest, I pulled this up earlier with HTTPS, and it did not pull. Oh, it redirected.
It redirected. Looks like. Oh yeah.
301. So they're on it. They might be trying to convert over right now.
Possibly, maybe at this very moment. So for my links to to kind of links to kind of make a little bit more of an impact for this page, is there anything else that we can kind of help with? On this page, we made sure that it was indexed. We said that we would add content, some external links. What else would we try to, would we advise if this is our hypothetical client? If there's anything else that we could help them optimize on this page?
Well, on this exact page, there's a ton of things we could do for this site. For example, February. Yeah, they don't even have analytics set up right now. So that would be my first step is get some analytics.
Okay, so that's good. So you know what's going on with the page, what's going on with the site. You can see traffic, where it's coming from. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely adding some internal links if it makes sense. So it looks like this might be a readers and writers center. So they might have a book club that's reading Our Faults and Our Stars.
Right.
And that might be an event they could link to from this piece right here. Or they could really fill out the content a little bit more, maybe entice me to read the book. Or maybe just put a summary of the book or a clip.
Like a Cliff's Notes.
Yeah.
Cliff's Notes for all the books. No, not really. Well, excellent. Well, so that's good. Let's check out the second example here. Kind of a departure from this one. This is a healthy living blog, and kind of when I was kind of searching out for this this landing page, I wanted to find something that was, if the client was saying, hey, we'd love to get this page to rank. This is our official linkable asset for healthy living advice, and this is our opinion. In our opinion, this is the best way to consume food for health and to how to utilize each different type of food. So it's important to this client. What can we do for them? What are they missing here? What can we do for them to kind of help optimize this before our links kind of start connecting?
I think one important thing to look at is it looks like they are an e-commerce site. So it looks like their money pages are Reiki courses, crystal shop, and selling tarot cards. Are you sure you're not trying to sell crystals right now?
You never know.
It looks like this article is about healthy eating. So that may relate to Reiki. I'm not sure, but if it does, it doesn't say anything about Reiki in here. There's no links to it. And it's really just a wall of content. So it's not very user-friendly, and it's not very bot-friendly. It doesn't meet any of the major things we're trying to hit on here. Maybe they could do more categorization here. They could definitely connect it with some internal and external links. External links are still very important. That's saying who your neighbors are. And let's see if they have title tags set up. So healthy living advice. That, I would say, is a pretty good title tag. That explains, they're like, eat some food. That'll get you super healthy.
I should try that.
All humans. That's what a robot would say. Let's see. All right. So I'm not really seeing, looks like it might be set up as an H1. I'm not really seeing a definitive H1, which tells me that there's probably not a good H2 in here.
And one thing that I kind of seeing here, and I think is relatively common, especially like I know WordPress is pretty guilty of this, is that when you are designing your like a blog, usually a blog post, it'll give you the option to like change the text, and it'll say like H2 is like this big bold text, and it's like, oh, I want that as my H2. And so you'll end up with like a nonsensical word that's like your H2 tag, or like it'll be your navigation, like, oh, I want my navigation to be bold and big at the top, so I'm going to make it this H2 format. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you're actually committing that page at least to having the H2 descriptors be like a single word, like crystal shop, or about, or blog, or all the above, instead of something that's actually descriptive of the content within the page. So be kind of wary about that. Whatever website builder platform that you're on, it's very easy to make that mistake. Raising my hand as someone who has personally made that mistake myself in the past as well.
Plus, you're out there building all these great, unique pages. Give them all great, unique descriptions to the Google bot. Because this one, it looks like it's about nutrition, so they could have done some like colorful food headings, or green foods that are amazing for you would have been a wonderful H2 heading. You're out there building these great pages. Give them good descriptions so Google can find them. Another thing to look at here, a lot of your links should definitely be followed. Followed links are how you explain who your neighbors are, what's important to follow internally, but some things that are bad to have followed include a comment section, which can pretty easily be abused. I don't see that here because there are no comments. And your social tags. So if you get a ton of traffic from your social, feel free to have those followed, but it does eat up a little bit of your crawl budget, and that could be a bad thing. You may want Google to spend a little bit more time on your site and a little less time following all of these social links on every single page in your footer or header, depending on where you put them. Let's see, what else is here? There's a lot of things that definitely could be improved. We could even see do all of the links on site work? Use the link checker tool.
Yes, one of the tools we talked about earlier. This is a great one. Automatically scans the page, looks for broken links. One thing too with that last page is that it may have been sound on kind of a robot's angle, where it's like, okay, it looks like the page was crawlable, looks like it was accessible to robots, but from a user experience side, it was not the most exciting. Like, it had the one picture at the top, and then it had just kind of this big list of foods. It's already hard enough to convince people to eat their vegetables, their fruits and vegetables as is. So just a giant list of these different fruits and vegetables, some of which I've never heard of, like cucumber. That's a crazy one. I don't know who eats those. All these different these crazy fruits and vegetables on here. They could show pictures of them. They could show maybe links to recipes that include them. I don't know, like all these different things. I'm kind of thinking from like a content level could really help with this. So
other things, for their author bio at the end, it's the person who I'm assuming is running Hand Serenity, their name, their phone number, their email address, that could be a link to their contact page, and that could direct some importance to their contact us page, which as an e-commerce site, your contact us page is how your customers are going to contact you. You want to direct some importance there, whereas this is just kind of floating here and doesn't really connect to the main point of the site. So you're losing a little bit of internal link equity there, as with the whole article, because you don't have any internal links. If you're totally missing internal links, or if you have a ton of duplicates, or if you're just not sure, Screaming Frog is one of those great tools to check out. You can look at, are your H2 tags different on most of your pages? Are your H1 tags? Are your title tags? It'll pull all of that information at one go, and that's really nice if you're looking at an older site.
Excellent. Let's move on to the third example here. So I thought this was kind of appropriate for Valentine's Day. So if you're just kind of tired of Valentine's Day, or as I used to call it, National Singles Awareness Day, it was this is a good time to get off the grid. Maybe just go off the grid, and maybe just start build a cabin in the woods somewhere, as was something that I was always interested in growing up. So with this page, we kind of have, if I own this site, I want this page to rank, because this is actually on the site too. This is kind of the very this is the steps to getting off the grid, right? So it's a lot of the main, it's the main steps to kind of achieving the goal, what the whole basis behind the site. And so we want this page to be really killer. So what are some things here that maybe we could improve, or maybe this person could improve upon? So some easy fixes that we're seeing.
Well, there are no external links, so that right there tells me that this guy has no neighbors. He's not pulling his information from anywhere. Other things.
That's kind of thematic, though. He's not, a living off the grid site is not linking to any other sites. So maybe maybe it's like a role playing element with that.
He learned all of his information by himself in the forest, raised by wolves. Some of these are actually a little bit better anchor text. So he has an internal link to start a garden, and it goes to this page on how to plant a garden, which is a great landing page for that anchor text. He's saying, you should start a garden to get off grid, and here's how you do it. But we look at other ones. Plant your trees. These are two different anchor texts, super close together. And realistically, plant your trees could go to this one article, how to plant a tree. This Fruit and Nuts Trees 101 isn't a great landing page. If I went there, I'd be a little bit confused about why I went there. I wouldn't want to explore around. I'd probably just close the page. And let's see if this guy has any title tags. Yeah, steps getting off the grid. It's wonderful title tags. Let's take a look. Don't really see it. Oh, so I typed H1 incorrectly. Yeah, I'm not really seeing any good H1 tags. Looks like there are no other tagging systems other than his title tags. So he doesn't have any neighbors. One good thing I saw here is he no-followed the thoughts or comment section, and that is great because these are really easy to spam.
So I can't just go in there and build a ton of links back to my personal blog.
Colin's living off the grid.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't pass any juice, not unless a whole bunch of people clicked on it and found it super useful. And that's really the big thing, is if people found you spamming the comments super useful, they might like it. Let's see if this is... So it is getting indexed, which is great. Other downsides is, if you notice in the corner, he's got this weird little image. That is a WordPress basic image. It's kind of like when you see the Blogspot images. It doesn't really tell a lot about his site, and that is unfortunate. If you really did love his site as well and you really wanted this to post, we could look and see if he's regularly posting. And let's see if he has a robots.txt, which, to be honest, from the quality of sites we've been looking at, very doubtful. Oh, he does. And he has a sitemap. He has a robots.txt and a sitemap.
Excellent. So not so off the grid as as initially seen.
It's not a huge sitemap, but he's got one. And it looks like it's just a list of a couple posts. And let's see if a similar number are getting. All right, so he's got 9 on here. It looks like Google's hitting almost all of his pages. It's indexing most of them.
Nice. So that's a good, so there's a lot of things happening here. So one cool thing that I saw you do was you did the in URL search for living off the grid. You just did the first part of his URL was livingoffthegridguide.com. Or what? Sorry, that just went by really quickly, but it was really cool what you did there.
Yeah. So that just I looked for all the Google results or all the things that Google has cached or indexed with in URL, his exact URL. So these are the pages that Google knows exists and shows to people, which is pretty nice to look at.
So I can check and see at any time just by doing that quick modifier to see what Google what Google actually has seen of my site, what it's putting out there. That's pretty neat. So that's a cool little trick.
It really is. One thing that you might get some off results if you have a very common URL name, like spiders.com. There might be bigspiders.com.
I happen to own that. I have to own both those domains. Excellent. So with this site, with this landing page, living off the grid. Even though we want to live off the grid, it looks like an important lesson would be to connect externally to other sites. It looks like there is some internal linking, which is good. Kind of why I chose this example, because it actually is one of the ones that kind of has the best example of kind of internal links and kind of like getting people to other parts of your site. But there's some other things to kind of be checking on here. So excellent. Any last thoughts on that one, or are you set?
He is pretty set. You could do with it a little bit of optimization in the keywords. Definitely recommend he bust into his analytics a little bit and get some neighbors. Do some external linking.
Neighbors might be overrated too. There's that. Excellent. So those are three live examples, and we're kind of about 37 minutes past the hour here. So kind of what we talked about here for the kind of basic walkthrough and a live walkthrough. So one important thing: keep an eye on analytics behavior, and we have some examples actually of that. And kind of what does that mean to you, Mary? Kind of as far as like tracking user behavior in Google Analytics.
So if you're just barely getting started, you probably haven't signed up for analytics yet. I would recommend one of the first things you do is sign up for analytics so you can start tracking that information.
It's easy. It's free.
It's amazing. You can look at who's looking at your site, where they're going, how much time they're spending on page. You can look at what pages Google is caching, what pages they're going to. It is a wonderful tool. It will tell you a ton of information about who's going to your site. Webmaster Tools, I'd also recommend going on there. Also wonderful, free, amazing.
AKA Search Console. Although I still in my mind I like to call it Webmaster Tools as well. Search Console has a really great kind of alert system set up that you can run and see if any of your pages are 404'd. That's kind of like not really a page level, but it's a nice domain level thing to kind of check. Make sure that none of your pages are dead or 404'd or broken for some reason. And that kind of goes into this next point too, is staying on top of broken links. You know, I always kind of imagine it like if your website is your house, then broken links are kind of like you know, a bunch of broken down cars and car parts, you know, parked in your front yard. You know, you got a car on blocks, you know, in the front yard or something like that. It's you know, a sign of broken links. It could be a little bit, you know, we could clean up that car, get it ready to go again, instead of, you know, so it's something easy to fix. So kind of a good housekeeping thing. Crawlable.
Yes, and if you want to get your site crawled a little bit faster, you could even make a sitemap, put it into Webmaster Tools or Search Console. That'd be very nice. Crawlable is big because Google is how a majority of people will find your site, and so making it available to Google is very, very important if you want a majority of people to find your site.
Duplicate content. So this could be there's so many ways to do duplicate content. It's just mind-boggling with, you know, the different versions of your site, that, you know, HTTP versus HTTPS, www dot versus no www dot. How do you keep it all together?
Duplicate content is a beast on its own. It's really easy. It seems really easy when you find a duplicate page. You're like, oh man, this little error, and there's 2 versions of my website. But duplicate pages will kill your crawl budget, and it can, even if it's terrible, start getting pages just cut off. Google just won't read it anymore, which is unfortunate. So some things to look for are if the same page has multiple URLs. If it's /donuts back, and then to get to there as well, you can go /chocolate. Duplicate URLs without a canonical tag is pretty important. Like if you have a different language versions of your site, and not just the Google Translate, if you have different language versions of your site, make sure it's correctly canonicalized. And of course, HTTP, HTTPS, the www version, all of those should be correctly set up. Those are some of the more common errors. When you find a duplicate version of your site, it seems like this tiny little easy fix, but there's 1,000 tiny little easy fixes that make duplicate content.
And then, of course, you know, you want to make sure that if you were writing an article and, you know, you want to link back to a page on your site, or like a good, you know, good landing page on your site, make sure that the expectations are set that within that link and within, yeah, that anchor text and that, you know, the contextual you know, kind of words around that matches up with what the user sees when they first land on your site. And that's kind of one really easy way to kind of help optimize with link building, is to make sure that, you know, if it says, you know, in this study in 2017, there are 50 ways to get off the grid, and here's a list of them. Click on that. Well, okay, I want to see that list of ways to get off the grid. Instead of like maybe ways to, you know, plant a garden or something more specific. So yeah, that's make sure that there's that parity there.
Plus, if you're building towards user-friendly content, that's a really great way to make sure what you're building is natural. And being as natural and as good for the user as possible is really what Google's aiming towards, and avoiding that black hat.
Amen to that. So things to look for: how to know if a page isn't optimized. Do a quick check for broken links. Make sure the page links to other pages within your domain, or even outside external links. Look at the three top tags: is meta, title tags, meta, H1s, H2s. Make sure that your content is indexed and indexable. So the reason why, and I bring this up too, is that there's a news page. I wasn't able to find it this morning, but I really wanted to show a screenshot. Not to call anyone out, a local news station, but they have their news articles are on JavaScript, and so yeah, visually the reader can see it, but when you look at the HTML of that page, it's like 3 lines long, and it's written on basically a picture. And so the bots aren't necessarily reading that. And yeah, there's been some, there's been some updates that, that Google can go through and fetch Java and things like that. But especially in this case too, where it's basically words that were kind of like on a Java created picture that was basically no text at all. It was insane to me.
And even if it can go through that JavaScript and pull it, that's still killing your crawl budget.
Yeah, exactly. For all those fetch requests and things like that. So anyway, I was just like, that for a news site, it was just hilarious. Make sure, and this is not, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, oh, you mention it, it seems so fundamental, but it's like, yeah, if you want to rank for best ways to get off the grid, is that phrase on that page? Check for that. Is that phrase anywhere on the page or in some sort of form of that?
Yeah, and we're not saying put get off the grid on every page directly.
No.
There's a ton of ways you can say that. You could say like escape into the forest, get off the grids.
Yep.
Vary it up. Google likes the variety.
Bug out of your current location.
Just as long as it's natural, it makes sense, and it addresses what the users really want to read.
Excellent. And then I want to talk about bounce rate interaction. So walk us through this chart. What is going on here?
So this is a behavior flow that I pulled from Google Analytics. This is very helpful if you're just starting out and you don't have that much information, or if you spend a ton of time on technical and you're not sure why users are falling off of your site. This flowchart is from the behavior flow in Google Analytics. Google Analytics is great. This is an easy chart to find. This is sorted by organic traffic and direct traffic because some of the direct traffic that Google reports is organic traffic. And this is great because, as you can see, ton of people, this is for Page One Power, ton of people come onto our site onto either miscellaneous pages or our homepage.
Homepage, that's 704 right there. That's the homepage.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, lots of people love going to our blog, which is called Linkerati. But we don't have any major page drainers. These are a mishmash assortment of different blog posts, a variety of pages. If you see any pages on here that are just draining users, that can be a sign that it's 404'd, that the page doesn't work, that the internal links are broken. It's a really good place to start if you just aren't sure where you're bleeding users from or what part of your site could potentially be broken.
So if they are, if you mean like kind of draining users, like bleeding users, it means that they're leaving the site.
They're leaving the site somewhere.
Okay,
yeah.
So we don't want that. And yeah, the other thing that I always like to look at too, we don't have a screenshot, but is look at your numbers for time on site and time on page, especially landing pages that you really want to rank. And if you see people what's known as pogo sticking, where if they hop onto the page from the search results, this is great. They find what they think they're looking for. But if they're on the page for fewer than like 3 or 4 seconds, they just hop back onto Google. That's called pogo sticking, and that's a serious problem that indicates that people aren't finding what they're looking for when they click through to you. You've already won. I mean, that's what optimization is so important. It's like you've already won. You've searched. You're ranking well enough that people are finding you through the search. They're clicking on you, clicking onto that page. You think at that point I win. I win the trophy. I win the internet. I go home. But Kanye interrupts you. Does not. Kanye interrupts you. Says you cannot take that trophy home just yet because I did not find what I was looking for, and now I'm hopping back onto Google. So you've already got that traffic, and just make sure that when people are on there, that they're finding that their time on page is pretty long. Longer than 3 seconds, so they can kind of find the answer. So
if you want to get real fancy, if you've got just a couple pages to optimize, you can also look at the heat map. The heat map is great because it'll show where people are clicking on page. You see it has like a live little clip of the page. It'll show where people are clicking. Are they scrolling down? That can be important if your call to actions are towards the bottom or the middle of the page and you're expecting, those people scroll down. They might not be. Pull up the heat map in Google Analytics. Very, very helpful. You've got just a couple pages to really optimize.
Well, excellent. Well, let's move on here. I believe we are on to the final portion here, the question and answer Q and A. If you got Q's, we've got A's. So I want to, we're just going to pull this up here, just to get the questions popped out here. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Okay. So we've got a couple questions here. Oh, good. So we kind of a comment. So we have a comment. Someone saying putting the information into an infographic would be killer. Great idea. That's from Jordan M. Absolutely. I was just actually kind of thinking about this too. Is that for the slide deck? I want to upload this the slide deck somewhere too and have it available so that anyone kind of go through, check out the bullet points. But an infographic actually would be a really good one as well. Oh, sorry. And Jordan was also talking. I thought Jordan was talking about our own. Looks like Jordan was talking about for the healthy living page. Yeah, that's a really good comment too for the healthy living page for optimizing that. If we go back to that kind of the healthy living section there, that example, that's a really good piece of feedback too. The reason why I like that is that if the author were to create an infographic about this, it's going to solve one of the problems of kind of the visual and kind of the user experience a portion of that. But what I love about infographics is that you can submit them to a lot of really interesting kind of infographic hubs. Reddit has an infographics section where you can kind of show people your cool thing that, hey, I made this thing, check it out. Or Reddit has infographics, Pinterest, even other social media outlets, Instagram, you can then turn it, share it as a picture basically. So that's a really good suggestion too. Don't be afraid, if you're a site owner, if you're a business owner, don't be afraid to take your, kind of a landing page that you really want to rank for, whether it be a product page or an informational page, and change it, flip the script, change the format on that a little bit and, take it from a blog post to an infographic or a blog post to a podcast or a blog post to an ebook or something like that and kind of really get a little bit of variety through that. And that's a good way to kind of help optimize both for user experience and for another way for bots to kind of discover you. I don't know, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the only problem I've run into for infographics is sometimes people won't make it readable, so it'll just show up as an image. There's different ways you can make it show up as an image versus an image with information on it. So just making sure that the information on the infographic is readable is very helpful.
Absolutely. I think we kind of brushed on this a little bit, but like if I even look at this image here, I want to inspect this, right click, inspect. I'm looking for alt text, and I want to make sure that the image has an alt text that's descriptive of the object, and it looks like that is not the case here. So another way that kind of Google and other bots can discover what's on your page is to have properly labeled alt text on all of your images as well. So yeah, something very important as far as like kind of quick little housekeeping thing that's easy to do but pays dividends. And let's have the alt text. I think it's a alt text checker. I think it's one of these two. Is an alt text. Oh yeah, it's this one. So a good way to an easy way to kind of check your alt text. Run the URL through here, what page you want it to look at, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on with all the images and all the alt text on there. So yeah, so we have a couple on here, but if you look at what is this one called specifically? Content container. So we can find this exact one. 559 pixels, so we can kind of look at that. So yeah, it's not showing up as having any alt text at all. So yeah, so that's something that we can kind of help optimize. And this is what this list here with these alt tags is what bots are seeing for the site. So that's pretty indicative of something that needs to be optimized as well. Mary, I was thinking as well, kind of the similar questions are kind of rolling in. Why don't you show us Screaming Frog?
Yeah.
Why don't you show us a quick Screaming Frog report, because this is so easy to kind of, you basically put in a site, put in a domain that you want to work on, your domain or whomever, and yeah, go ahead and grab that window over there. And you put in the domain, hit start, and SEO Screaming Frog basically goes through and it fetches the site as a bot would. You can even fetch as different specific bots. You can tell it to fetch as Google bot. You can tell it to fetch as, I believe, even Bing bot. So there's a lot of different options there. And now what it is it's going through every single page, trying to find every single page on the site, trying to get the whole domain scraped here. And it's going to give us a quick report on exactly what is going on. So from your optimization perspective, what are some quick things some quick wins that we can kind of achieve here?
So if you're just starting out, you're not really sure where to go, but you know you need some page titles, you know you need some H tags. This is really great because it'll show you all of those really, really quickly. You can pull as any bot, really. You can even pull as Moz, which is quite fun. But while this is loading, I'll just show you where that's at. It's over here in the overview section. Page titles. It looks like we don't have any missing right now, but we've got some that are a little bit long, some that are below 30s, and those are these guys right here. And as you can see, they're not super inventive. They're page titles.
What's so bad if it's long? What's so bad if it's what are we looking out for there?
It won't show up for the user when they're searching stuff. It might get cut off. And if you look at this, they're using a lot of the same endings. So living off the grid, same thing added to the end. So it's also not that original. If we look at H1s, all of the ones it's pulled are just missing.
So it just gives me a list of all of my pages with missing H1 tags.
Yeah, and this is a really great place to start.
That's amazing.
Because if you look at like the H2s, they're all duplicates, and it will show you exactly which ones are duplicates in order. This is a dandy tool. It'll even show you like images, which ones are too big, which ones are missing alt text.
That's that alt text again.
Yes. Yep. And it'll search, I think it's 500 pages for free. Super helpful. Super, super helpful if you're just getting started. It's got a ton of information. I highly recommend looking around in here. It'll show you what pages are being blocked by the robots.txt. So you might be blocking something in your robots that you may not want blocked. For example, you might have blocked all of the login pages.
You want to block some stuff.
You want to block some stuff,
right?
For sure.
You want to block if you save any customer information or credit card, a lot of the cart stuff. Profiles are blocked.
You might have like a back-end access page that's just for you, or like a tester page that you just don't really want anyone Googling and finding.
Right.
But sometimes you might accidentally block part of your blog or little things like that. This is a good way to test it out real quick. And these aren't hard and fast 100%, but it's pretty darn close. It's pretty darn close. So we can just look at right now. It looks like it's pulled everything it can, all 500 for living off the grid guide. As you can see, they've got some duplicate title pages. So we've got soil, not only for, as a title tag, not only for this living off the guide, under the category of gardening, about soil compost, but also under everything tagged soil. Yeah.
Excellent. And this is all for free, and a really great tool to kind of help jumpstart your kind of on-site technical SEO endeavors. Especially if you're like if you're like the friend that I was kind of helping out with his new business. He only had 10 pages. He only had 10 pages, a few product pages, about us, a home page. So this Screaming Frog tool is going to be perfect for him. Kind of a lot of your average small businesses aren't going to have 600 700 pages there. So, excellent. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, any last thoughts, any last takeaways before we wrap it up?
Well, if you're doing any sort of link building or if you're doing any sort of digital marketing, technical SEO is definitely something you should look into. Technical is a really great place to start if you're just looking to get a few more people on your website.
I like that too. Let me just get back to the slide deck here. So for our next webinar, we actually have one coming up on the 22nd of this month here. It's actually, we're doing a partnership webinar with Search Engine Journal, and we will be talking with our very own Cody Cahill, and project manager here at Page One Power, and he's going to be talking about kind of some ins and outs of kind of managing and kind of how to, structurally, what does it take to kind of build to kind of build a link building team and run a link building team here at Page One Power, or for any other kind of business endeavor kind of starting out in this area. So please join us for that. That'll be next week, and watch the site and watch our Twitter feed as well, at Page One Power, for more information on that. So there is a view from the Boise bench here, and thank you so much for joining us. We are out.